Okay, so I have a question that might sound a little weird to start with, but just stick with me.
All right, I'm ready.
I want you to imagine a person who is just completely unequivocally good.
Good in what way?
I don't mean, holds the door open for you
Like,
good, or donates to charity for the tax write-off
yeah,
kind of good.
right.
I mean, a person who literally cannot lie.
Yeah.
A person who has, like, zero filter, zero ego,
Hmm.
and who looks at a murderer and sees a friend.
Okay, I'm picturing him. It's a nice image, but a difficult one to hold on to.
Now take that guy, that perfectly beautiful man, as the source calls him, that figure of absolute compassion, and drop him right into the middle of a Shark Tank.
A Shark Tank.
Metaphorically, yeah.
Sure.
Drop him into a world that is obsessed with money, obsessed with status, where every single interaction is a transaction and everyone has a secret.
Right, 19th century Russia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what happens? Does he save the sharks?
Yeah.
Or do the sharks just tear him to pieces?
That is the question, isn't it? And it's not just some, philosophical thought experiment.
Huh.
You've just described the central experiment of the masterpiece we are exploring today.
We are taking a deep dive into Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Idiot. And I have to say, just looking at this stack of notes and the book itself, that title, it's a bit of a hurdle.
It is. It confronts you right away, doesn't it?
I mean, we're conditioned to think of that word as an insult, a slur. If I call someone an idiot on the street, them's fighting words.
Absolutely. And in the 1860s, it wasn't a compliment either.
Uh-huh.
But we really have to peel back the layers of that word if we're going to get what Dostoevsky's doing here.
So where does it come from?
Well, we're looking at the Richard Piver and Larissa Volokhonsky translation, which is, it's widely considered the gold standard.
Yeah.
And Piver makes this great point in his introduction, the word idiot. It actually goes back to the Greek idios.
Which means what?
It
Exactly.
basically means a private person.
A private person.
Yeah, someone who doesn't participate in the public square, who isn't political, who lives inside their own head. It's someone who is fundamentally disconnected from the collective machinery of society.
So it's not about low IQ. It's about being separate, an outsider.
Disconnected from the norms, yes. Then, in the novel, it's also medical.
Right. He has epilepsy.
Our main character, Prince Myshkin, has epilepsy. And in the 1860s, that was often just lumped in with general mental cognitive issues or nervous illnesses. He spent years in a sanatorium in Switzerland.
So when he comes back to Russia, people call him an idiot, partly because of that medical history.
But mostly because he acts like that Greek idiotis. He just doesn't know the rules. He's a private person in a very public, very judgmental world.
He doesn't know you're supposed to lie at a dinner party to be polite.
He doesn't know you're supposed to be jealous of your rivals or that you shouldn't talk about the death penalty with the servant you've just met.
He's socially retarded in the literal sense of the word held back.
Exactly. But spiritually, he's light years ahead of everyone else. And that difference, that friction, is where the whole tragedy of the novel comes from.
That's what I want to get into. Because usually when we hear spiritual guy meets corrupt society, we expect a sermon, right? We expect the good guy to win, or at least to teach everyone a lesson by the end.
The feel-good story.
Yeah. But Dostoevsky, he doesn't really do happy endings, does he?
No, he does not. Dostoevsky is interested in the tragedy of goodness. He wrote a letter to his niece, Sofia Ivanova, while he was writing this book. And he said the idea he was trying to capture was immeasurable. He wanted to portray a positively beautiful man.
Which sounds nice on paper. But in a novel, nice is usually boring.
Yeah.
A perfect character has no conflict.
That's exactly the problem. Perfection is static. It's incredibly hard to make a perfect person interesting. Dostoevsky knew this. He looked at literature, he looked at Don Quixote, he looked at Pickwick and Dickens. Now, those are beautiful characters in their own way, but they work because they are ridiculous. We laugh at them.
Right, Quixote's charging at windmills. We love him, but we don't exactly respect his grip on reality.
We feel a compassionate superiority. But Dostoevsky wanted Myshkin to be different. He wanted him to be innocent, yes, maybe a bit idiotic in the eyes of the world, but not a joke. He's meant to be sad, not comic.
So he wanted to portray a figure of absolute compassion without that comedic shield.
He wanted to see if a Christ figure could exist in modern Russia without being crucified immediately.
Spoilers, but the world hasn't changed that much since the first century.
It really hasn't.
Okay, so we're focusing on part one, the first 7 chapters. This is the arrival. This is the setup. And before we even get to the plot, we have to talk about the vibe of this book.
Right.
Because I noticed something reading this compared to, say, Crime and Punishment.
Oh, what stood out to you?
Well, in Crime and Punishment, the city St. Petersburg is like a character in itself. It's oppressive. You can smell the hay barges on the canal, the dust, the drunk guys in the taverns. It's hot and sticky and real.
You can feel the city pressing in on Raskolnikov.
Totally. But here, in The Idiot, it feels unanchored, almost like it's happening on a stage set.
That is a brilliant observation. You've hit on something that critics have argued about for decades. Crime and Punishment is a novel of the city. It's a novel of the streets. You can literally map Raskolnikov's walk.
Right.
But The Idiot, there is almost no place.
How can you have a novel with no place? I mean, they have to be somewhere.
They are, technically, but the narrator doesn't care about the walls or the streets. Think about where the scenes take place. We are almost entirely indoors. We're in anterooms, waiting rooms, train carriages, drawing rooms.
It's so claustrophobic.
It's incredibly claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Pévert, in his introduction, calls it a novel of the inobjective body.
Inobjective body. Okay, that sounds like heavy academic jargon. Break that down for us.
Okay, think about it like this. When you have a really high fever, or maybe when you're absolutely terrified, or you're madly in love and you're standing 2 inches away from the person you love, do you notice the architecture of the building you're in? Do you care about the wallpaper?
No. I notice my pulse. I notice if I'm sweating. I notice if my hands are shaking. The world becomes my own body.
Exactly. The world out there just fades away, and reality becomes what is happening inside your skin. The trembling of a hand, the heat of a blush, the sudden dizziness. That is where this novel takes place.
So it's not about where the characters are.
It's about their proximity to each other. The drama is in the space between bodies.
That's interesting because looking at the plot for these first 7 chapters, nobody just hangs out. They're always colliding.
Yes, it's a novel of thresholds, doorways, staircases. That moment when you're forced to stand next to a stranger and you can't hide, Dostoevsky strips away the scenery so all you have left are the raw, exposed nerve endings of the people.
He focuses on the invasive presence of the other.
That's the perfect phrase for it. It feels invasive just reading it. And that physical discomfort is intentional.
Why? What's he setting up?
He's setting up a world of flesh. A world where the body and the eventual death of the body is the ultimate, inescapable reality.
And speaking of the death of the body, we have to talk about the painting.
The whole volume.
I looked this up before we started recording. It's called The Dead Christ in the Tomb by Hans Holbein the Younger. And I have to admit, I was expecting, a typical Renaissance Jesus.
Peaceful, maybe a little halo, sleeping gracefully.
Yes, and instead,
Yeah.
It's a corpse.
You know,
It's a slab of meat.
it's horrifying, isn't it?
It's green, it's swollen, the mouth is open, the eyes are rolled back. It honestly looks like a body that has been in a morgue for 3 days during a heat wave.
That's almost exactly what Holbein was painting. The story is he used a drowned body that was fished out of the Rhine River as his model.
Seriously.
That was the rumor. He didn't want to paint God. He wanted to paint a dead human being who had been beaten and broken. Jesus. Literally.
Oh.
And this painting, this image, it hangs over the entire book like a ghost. But you have to understand the context here. This isn't just some random symbol Dostoevsky pulled out of an art history book.
You saw it in person.
He saw this painting in real life in Basel, Switzerland in 1867.
He just went to the museum.
He did. And his wife, Anna, wrote about it in her diary. She said the painting was so terrifying, so ugly, she couldn't even stay in the room. She had to leave. But Dostoevsky, he climbed up on a chair.
In the middle of the museum.
In the middle of the museum. Imagine this scene. One of the greatest writers in Russian history, this intense, bearded man standing on a chair in a Swiss museum. The guards are watching him. His wife is panicking that he's going to get fined or arrested.
But he wouldn't move.
He stood on this chair staring at this rotting face of Christ. And Anna said he had that look, the look of terror and fascination that he often had right before an epileptic seizure.
Why? What was it about that specific image that just broke it?
It's the physics of it. Think about the core of Christian belief. If Christ is God, he conquers death, right? That's the whole point. Resurrection, victory over the grave.
The triumph over nature.
But if you look at that painting, you see nature winning. You see rot. You see decay. You see the laws of physics tearing that body apart. And there is zero sign, absolutely zero, that it's ever coming back to life.
So if you look at it for too long,
you start to think, if the laws of nature are powerful enough to chew up the body of God himself, what chance do I have? What hope is there for anyone?
That's the line from the book, right? One of the characters says, a man could lose his faith from that painting.
Exactly. And that is the shadow that our perfectly beautiful man our Prince Myshkin has to walk into. He is walking into a world that believes in the Holbein painting, a world that believes matter is all there is, dead is dead, money is money, flesh is flesh.
And he's trying to bring something else.
Something else entirely.
So let's bring him in. The book opens on a train.
The Petersburg-Warsaw line. It's November, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and the weather is just disgusting.
Damp, foggy, thawing. You can't even see out the windows. And sitting across from each other are two young men who are, they're practically perfect opposites. It's almost too neat a setup.
It's a collision of worlds right from page one. On one side, you have Prince Lev Nikolaevich Myshkin.
Our hero.
He's about 26 or 27. He's wearing this large, thick cloak with a huge hood. Very Swiss, very Italian, but completely insufficient for a Russian November.
He's freezing. He's the guy who showed up to the party in a t-shirt when everyone else is in parkas.
He's shivering. He has thick blonde hair, sunken cheeks, a little thin, whitish beard, and these large blue fixed eyes. The text says his eyes have a quiet but heavy expression, by which some people can guess he has epilepsy.
And he's carrying just a tiny bundle.
A tiny bundle of faded foulard. That's literally everything he owns in the world.
He's the spiritual element. He's the air. And sitting opposite him
is the earth. Parfyon Rogozhin. He's the same age, about 27, but he's dark-haired with small, fiery gray eyes. He's wearing a big, warm, black lambskin coat.
He's prepared for the cold. He's grounded.
He's well-fed, robust, but pale. And there's something aggressive about him, something passionate. His face has this mocking and even malicious smile.
And there's a third guy kind of hovering around them, right? The clerk.
Lebedev. He's the archetype of the know-it-all. You know, the guy who knows everyone's business, knows exactly how much money everyone has, but has no money himself. He's a parasite.
So we have the saint, the beast, and the leech.
That's a bit reductive, but for the purpose of this scene, it works perfectly. And Rogozhin starts grilling the prince right away. He sees the cheap cloak and assumes the prince is a nobody. He asks him if he's cold.
And the prince just answers with complete honesty.
Yeah.
He's so open. He explains he's been in Switzerland for 4 years being treated for a nervous illness.
Idiotism or the falling sickness. And Rogozhin just laughs at him. He thinks it's hilarious. He asks if they cured him, and the prince says, no, they didn't.
Which Rogozhin loves. It's like, this guy's such a loser. He spent all his money and didn't even get cured. But then the tables turn a bit.
They do. Rogozhin reveals why he is on the train, and this backstory is absolutely wild.
It sets up everything. He's returning home to claim a massive inheritance. His father has just died.
But just a month ago, Rogozhin was on the run for his life.
This is the story about the diamond earrings. We have to unpack this because it says everything about Rogozhin's character.
Yes. Rogozhin became obsessed with a woman named Nastasya Filippovna. We'll talk about her a lot. She is the most famous beauty in St. Petersburg, but she's a kept woman, a controversial figure.
And Rogozhin sees her once, and he just loses his mind.
Completely consumed by passion. It's not love, it's a fever, an obsession.
And to get her attention, he needs money.
So he steals from his father. Now, you have to understand the merchant class in 1860s Russia. These were hard, religious, brutal men. The father was the absolute patriarch. Stealing from your father wasn't just naughty, it was a cardinal sin.
It was a death wish.
Rogozhin took 2 5% notes worth 10,000 rubles, cashed them, bought a pair of diamond earrings, and went to see Nastasya Filippovna.
Can we just pause on the money for a second? 10,000 rubles. What is that in today's money?
It's hard to do a direct conversion, but think of it this way. A minor government official might earn 500 rubles a year. A really good salary might be 2,000.
So Rogozhin dropped 5 years of a good salary on a single pair of earrings. It's like stealing $250,000 from your dad's safe to buy jewelry for a woman you've met once.
Exactly. It's a gesture of absolute insane passion.
And what happened? Did she fall in love with him?
No. She took them, she smiled at him, and she left. That's it.
That is just so cold.
It's a power move. She knows her worth. And for that one smile, Rogozhin risked his life. His father found out. He threatened to send him to a debtor's prison or to the army.
So Rogozhin fled.
He ran to his aunt in Pskov, fell into a brain fever from fear and alcohol, and while he was delirious and on the verge of death, His father died.
So now he's coming back not as a fugitive, but as a millionaire. 2.5 million rubles.
Talk about failing upwards. He goes from being a dead man walking to being one of the richest men in the city overnight. The ultimate reversal of fortune.
But notice the prince's reaction here. Lebedev, the clerk, immediately starts sucking up to Rogozhin once he hears the word millionaire. He's practically drooling.
He changes his entire demeanor.
But the prince, he's just interested in the human story. He didn't care about the money. He cares about the passion, the fear, the father.
And Rogozhin senses that immediately. He likes the prince. He says, "Prince, I don't know why I've come to love you." He offers to buy him a proper coat, offers him money. He calls him a holy fool, God's fool.
That's a very specific Russian concept, isn't it? The Yuridivy.
Yes. In the Russian Orthodox tradition, the holy fool is someone who is outside society's norms. Maybe they seem mentally ill, maybe just eccentric. But because they are outside, they are believed to be closer to spiritual truth.
They can speak truth to power because they don't care about the rules.
Precisely. And Rogozhin, this man of flesh and passion and earthly desires, recognizes the man of spirit immediately. It's like a magnetic pull between opposites.
It's like game recognizes game, but spirit recognizes spirit, even if one is light and the other is dark.
Exactly. They are doubles, as Dostoevsky would say. They are inextricably linked. You can't have the shadow without the light.
So they get off the train. Rogozhin goes off with his gang of hanger-ons, and the prince goes to the only connection he has in St. Petersburg, General Epanchin.
Or, more specifically, the general's wife, who is a distant relation, the last living Princess Myshkin, besides him.
And this leads us to the anteroom scene. The prince arrives at the general's grand house. He looks like a beggar. And the valet, the servant at the door, doesn't want to let him in.
This is a crucial scene for understanding the prince's method, if you can even call it that. The valet is rigid. He's a servant, but he has the dignity of the anteroom. He knows the hierarchy.
And the prince is at the very bottom of it.
He suspects the prince is there to beg. He wants to put him in the waiting room, not take him to the office. He wants to enforce the social code.
But the prince doesn't get angry. He doesn't pull the "do you know who I am" card, even though he's technically a prince.
No, he does the opposite. He treats the valet as an equal. Actually, more than an equal, he treats him like a confidant. He starts explaining his whole situation, his lack of money, his distant relation. He completely ignores the social barrier between them.
It's so disarming.
It confuses the valet completely. But then the prince does something even stranger. He looks at the man's face and starts talking about capital punishment.
Which is a choice. You're waiting for what is basically a job interview, and you start talking to the receptionist about the guillotine.
It's so socially inappropriate, but it's captivating. The valet is shocked, but he can't help but listen. And the story the prince tells is absolutely devastating.
This is from his time in France, in Lyon. He witnessed an execution.
Yes. And here, Dostoevsky is channeling his own deep personal obsession. The prince argues that the worst part of execution isn't the physical pain, it's the certainty.
I want to push on that a bit, because he argues that execution is worse than murder, worse than being attacked by bandits in the woods. But if I'm murdered, I'm dead. If I'm executed, I'm dead. The result is the same. Why is the state killing someone worse than a criminal killing someone?
It's not about the pain or even the result, it's about the hope.
The hope.
The prince says, imagine you're walking home and a bandit jumps out with a knife. He's about to slit your throat. It's agony, it's terrifying. But up until that very last second, what is in your mind?
I'm thinking, I can fight him off. Or maybe someone will hear me scream and come running. Or maybe he'll have a change of heart.
Exactly. You have hope. Even a soldier running into a hail of cannon fire has hope. Maybe they'll miss me. That hope, however slim, acts as a shield for the soul. It distracts you from the pure, naked reality of death.
But the man condemned to the guillotine.
He has the sentence. It's read to him. He is put in the cart. He is driven to the scaffold. There is no bandit to fight. There's no chance of escape. He knows with absolute mathematical certainty that in 5 minutes, then 2 minutes, then 10 seconds, his head is coming off.
It's the inevitability. It's the clock ticking.
It's the certainty. And the prince says that certainty is an outrage on the soul. It forces the human mind to stare directly at the void without blinking, and the mind isn't built for that.
He talks about the sound, too. That detail really got me, the screech of the iron blade.
When you put your head under that knife and hear it come screeching down on you, that 1/4 of a second is the most horrible of all.
It's so visceral. And it leads into another story. Well, he tells us a bit later to the Epanchin girls, but it fits here perfectly thematically. The story of the man with 5 minutes to live.
This is pure, unadulterated autobiography, and this is why this book feels so heavy with lived experience. Dostoevsky lived this.
This has really happened to him.
In 1849, he was arrested for being part of a progressive intellectual circle reading banned books, essentially. He was sentenced to death by firing squad.
And they actually took him out to the square. It wasn't just a threat.
Semyonovsky Square. They dressed them in white burial shirts. They tied the first 3 men to posts. Dostoevsky was in the second group. He stood there and watched the soldiers raise their rifles to shoot his friends. He had literally 5 minutes left to live.
I can't even begin to imagine what goes through your head in that moment. The panic must be indescribable.
Well, the prince tells us what went through his head, and he tells it with this eerie, detached calm. He describes exactly how this condemned man divided the time.
Right. 2 minutes to say goodbye to his comrades.
2 minutes to think about himself for the last time.
And 1 minute just to look around at the world.
The breakdown is so specific, so chillingly rational. 2 minutes for goodbyes, 2 minutes for who am I and where am I going, and 1 minute just to see the sunlight for the last time.
He talks about looking at the gold dome of a church nearby, how it was reflecting the sun. He stared at it and felt like he was going to merge with that light.
Yeah.
He became obsessed with the light.
And the regret.
The regret was crushing. The man thought, if only I could live, what an infinity of life. I'd turn each minute into a whole age. I'd lose nothing. I'd reckon up every minute separately. I'd waste nothing. He promised himself that if he survived, he would never waste a single second.
And then, famously, a messenger rides up at the last possible moment. A reprieve from the Tsar. It was a mock execution, a piece of psychological torture designed to terrify them. His sentence was commuted to hard labor in Siberia.
That is the most convicting thing I've ever heard. I'd turn each minute into a whole age. Because he survived. Dostoevsky survived. But did he do it? Did he live that way?
And this is the tragic punchline. The prince admits it to the girls. He didn't live that way at all and lost many, many minutes.
We all do. We're all that guy on the scaffold who gets a reprieve and then we go home and scroll on our phones for 3 hours.
That is a painfully modern translation of it, but yes, that is exactly it.
Oh,
We
no.
cannot sustain that level of intensity. We forget the gold dome. The gift of life becomes ordinary again.
So the prince eventually gets past the valet. He meets the general. He meets the general's secretary, Ganya. And here we get our first glimpse of the woman who drives the entire plot, Nastasya Filippovna.
And it happens through a photograph, a portrait on the general's desk.
The prince picks it up. And his reaction is fascinating. He doesn't say, wow, she's beautiful, which, by all accounts, she is.
No, his first reaction is to read her soul. He says, a gay face, but she has suffered terribly. He looks at her eyes, the dark points under her eyes. He sees pride, contempt, and a deep, deep well of suffering.
And then he kisses the portrait.
Which shocks everyone in the room, but he kisses it out of compassion, not romance. He sees a kindred spirit, someone who has been profoundly damaged by the world.
We need to unpack her backstory, because in this society, she's considered a fallen woman. But the details are horrifying. It's not like she made some wild choices. She was a victim from childhood.
She was a child victim. It's the story of a wealthy 55-year-old landowner, Totsky, and an orphan. Totsky took in Nastasya when she was a little girl. He raised her in a secluded village he owned called Delight.
Which is already creepy.
Incredibly creepy. He gave her a top-tier education, music, art, French tutors. And then when she was 16, he made her his mistress.
He groomed her. It's statutory rape.
Absolutely. He used her for his pleasure in the summers when he would visit his estate. But then, years later, Totsky wants to get married to a respectable woman from a good family in St. Petersburg. He assumes he can just pay Nastasya off and she'll disappear quietly.
He thinks he can buy her silence.
He thinks she'll be grateful for the money and go away. But she doesn't disappear.
No.
And this is where she becomes this terrifyingly powerful figure. She doesn't arrive in Petersburg as the weeping, ruined girl begging for scraps. She arrives as a cynical, mocking, brilliant woman. She threatens to ruin Totsky's wedding with a massive public scandal.
She holds a mirror up to his hypocrisy.
Exactly. She realizes that her shame is actually a weapon because these high society men care more about their reputation than anything else. So Totsky is trapped. He needs to get rid of her to marry his respectable girl, and he concocts a plan.
The transaction. This is where the book gets really, really gross.
It does. Totsky decides to sell her to Ganya, the general secretary. He offers 75,000 rubles as a dowry.
Basically, he's paying Ganya to marry his former mistress so he can be free of her.
He's laundering her socially.
75,000 rubles. We said Rogozhin's 10,000 was a lot. This is a fortune.
This is set yourself up for life money. You'd be a wealthy man.
And Ganya agrees.
Ganya is maybe the most normal character in the book, which in Dostoevsky's world makes him the most despicable. He hates Nastasya. He calls her the nasty woman. He feels utterly humiliated by the idea.
But the money.
But he is consumed by ambition and greed. He wants to rise in society, to become a financial power, the king of the Jews, as Lebedev calls him. So he agrees to take the damaged goods for the cash.
It transforms a human being into a commodity, a problem to be solved with a check.
It is entirely transactional, and Nastasya knows it. She knows Ganya hates her. She knows Totsky is just buying his freedom, and she plays with them. She tortures them with it. She says, I might say yes, I might say no. She reserves her final decision for her birthday party that very evening.
So the prince walks right into the middle of this powder keg. He's looking at the portrait of the woman who is being sold, standing next to the man, Ganya, who is buying her, in the office of the general who is brokering the whole dirty deal.
And the prince, in his innocence, sees right through it all. He says to Ganya about Totsky he'd marry her, and a week later he might well put a knife in her.
Which freaks Ganya out because it's exactly what he's feeling. He's both afraid of her and full of rage.
The prince is a truth teller. He doesn't mean to be rude or provocative. He just says what he sees in people's souls, and that terrifies people who live on lies and secrets.
So the general is a bit confused by this prince. He's shabby, he's odd, but he's also oddly perceptive. And the prince needs a job. So the general decides to test him.
This brings us to the lunch with the Apanchins segment. But first, the calligraphy test.
I love this part because it's so specific and so strange. The general asks if he can write, and the prince is like, oh, I can write.
He's a rare calligrapher. But it's not just about having pretty letters. For the prince, calligraphy is a form of soul reading. He writes the signature of a 14th century religious abbot, Hegeman Pafnuti.
And then he writes in the style of a military scrivener.
And he analyzes the handwriting as he does it. He says he can feel the soul of the military scrivener in the loops and flourishes.
He says the collar of the military scrivener is too tight, the military discipline is choking him, but the pen wants to break free and show some artistry.
Yes. It shows the prince's intense, almost supernatural empathy. He doesn't just copy the form, he feels the person behind the ink. He enters their reality for a moment.
Which, surprisingly, wins the general over. The general's like, okay, this guy has a real, tangible skill. So he takes him to meet the family. The women.
Mrs. Epanchin and the 3 daughters, Alexandra, Adladida, and the youngest, the great beauty, Aglaya.
And this is where the idiot is really put on display. They expect him to be a clown, a curiosity. They want to play blind man's buff with him. They treat him like a child.
And Mrs. Epanchin, Lizaveta Prokofievna, is eccentric, commanding. She's actually very similar to the prince in her lack of filter and her childlike outbursts.
And they ask him to tell a story. They want to be entertained by the strange man from the Swiss sanatorium. And he tells them about a donkey.
The famous ass story. He says he was woken from his mental darkness, his idiocy, in Switzerland by the braying of an ass in the marketplace.
And the sisters just laugh at him. An ass? Really? That's your great awakening.
But he defends the donkey so earnestly. He says it's a patient, useful, strong, and misunderstood creature. And of course, he identifies with it. The ass in Christian symbology is a humble animal. It carried Christ into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday.
So he knows they are laughing at him. He knows they see him as the ass.
He does. But he accepts it with such good humor and sincerity that he completely disarms them.
But then he tells the story that really stops them in their tracks. The story of Marie.
This is the emotional centerpiece of part 1. If you want to understand what Dostoevsky means by a positively beautiful man, you have to understand the story of Marie.
So let's tell it. Back in the Swiss village where he was being treated, there was a young girl named Marie.
She was a sick, consumptive girl, weak, poor. She had been seduced by a French traveling salesman who came through town. He took her away for a week, then dumped her on the side of the road and left her to walk home in shame.
And in this strict, religious Swiss village, that made her a pariah.
Worse than a pariah. She was treated as subhuman. Her own mother beat her and treated her like vermin. The pastor, the man of God, used her as an example of sin in his sermons. He told the entire village not to help her, not to even touch her.
The cruelty is just staggering. The children in the village started throwing stones at her.
She was completely broken. She believed she was guilty. She believed she was dirt. She stopped speaking. She just crept around the edges of the village, starving and sick.
And then the prince intervenes.
But notice how he intervenes. The sisters ask him if he was in love with her. That's the only category they have for this kind of attention. And he says no. He didn't love her romantically. He pitied her.
Now, in our modern world, pity sounds so condescending. Oh, I pity you. It sounds arrogant, like you're looking down on someone.
Right. But in Dostoevsky's Christian vocabulary, pity or compassion is the highest form of love. It is agape, it's selfless. Romantic love, eros, is possessive. It wants to own the other person. Pity wants to heal.
So what did he do?
He kissed her hand.
That's it.
In front of everyone, in front of the children who were throwing stones at her, he treated her with dignity when the whole world was treating her like filth. He started talking to the children. He told them, she's not guilty, only unfortunate. He reframed her story from one of sin to one of suffering.
And that changed everything for them.
It transformed the village children. Children are cruel when they are taught to be cruel by adults, but they are also capable of intense love and empathy. They stopped judging her and started loving her. They brought her food. They brought her flowers. They would climb up to her window just to say, Je vous aime, Marie. We love you, Marie.
And the pastor was furious.
He was. He tried to forbid it, but he couldn't stop it. The pure, innocent love of the children shielded her from the judgment of the adults. And Marie died almost happy.
She died feeling forgiven.
Not by the church, not by the adults who had condemned her, but by the love of the children and the idiot. The prince proved that compassion is a restorative force. It can give a soul back its value before it leaves the world.
It's such a beautiful, sad story. And it completely changes the way that Ipanchin women look at him. They realize he's not a clown, he's something else entirely.
And that's when the face-reading scene happens. Emboldened by his story, they ask him to analyze them.
He looks at Adelita, the painter, and says she has a happy face, a kind sister's face, a simple, good soul.
He looks at Alexandra, the eldest, and sees a secret sorrow. He compares her to the Holbein Madonna, bringing that heavy religious imagery back in.
And Mrs. Ipanchin, what does he say to her?
He tells her she is a perfect child, in all her good and all her bad, which is the highest compliment he can give, and it absolutely delights her. He sees that despite her age and her grumpiness, her soul is still young and honest.
But then we get to Aglaya, the beauty, the one everyone is obsessed with. Mrs. Epanchin asks, what about her? What's her face?
And the prince hesitates. For the first time, he's reluctant. He says, I can't say anything now, I'll say it later.
Why?
He says, beauty is a riddle. And then he drops an absolute social bomb. He says she is almost as good-looking as Nastasya Filippovna.
Oof. The room must have gone silent. Comparing the general's respectable, pristine youngest daughter to the most notorious fallen woman in Petersburg.
It's a scandalous comparison socially, an insult. But for the prince, it isn't. Visually, physically, he sees a link. Both women possess a kind of beauty that is so powerful it's dangerous. A beauty that can overturn the world, as Adelita says.
So he's not just complimenting her, he's also warning her.
He implies that Aglaya has the potential for the same kind of pride or the same kind of suffering that has defined Nastasya. He sees the danger in her beauty.
And right in the middle of all this emotional and psychological tension, the plot kicks back in. Ganya, the secretary, grabs the prince in the hallway.
And begs him to deliver a note.
A secret note to Aglaya.
So Ganya is engaged, sort of, to Nastasya for her 75,000 rubles, but he's trying to keep Aglaya on the hook as a backup plan. Or is he actually in love with Aglaya?
It's ambiguous, but mostly it's just greed and vanity. Ganya is hedging his bets. He knows marrying Nastasya is social suicide and will be a personal hell. If he could somehow land Aglaya, a general's daughter, respectable, rich, he'd be saved.
So he's using the prince, the most honest man in the world, to be his mule for this deceitful secret note.
And the prince, because he can't say no to someone in distress, he does it. He hands the note to Aglaya.
And Aglaya takes it with this look of challenge, of mockery. She implicates him in the intrigue. The prince, who wants nothing more than to be perfectly open and honest, is now tangled in a web of secrets on his very first day.
So we've reached the end of part one, basically. We have the prince, this truth teller, standing in the middle of an absolute minefield.
Let's just look at the board. You have Nastasya Filippovna, the beautiful, wounded woman suffering from pride and shame, about to be sold at her own birthday party.
You have Ganya, the man consumed by vanity and greed, trying to buy her while secretly pursuing Aglaya.
You have Rogozhin, the man of fire and obsession, lurking in the background with 2.5 million rubles, ready to storm the party and buy her himself.
And you have the prince,
The idiot.
who sees it all. He identifies the suffering in Nastasya just from a picture. He identifies the greed and self-loathing in Ganya. He identifies the raw animal passion in Rogozhin.
And he identifies the dangerous potential in Aglaya's beauty. Exactly. And we have to just touch on that double concept again here. Rogozhin and the prince are often seen as two sides of the same coin.
The flesh and the spirit,
Right.
the shadow and the light.
Right. They call each other brother. They even exchange their Christian crosses later in the book, a very intimate act. You can't have one without the other. The prince perceives the spiritual reality of the world, but Rogozhin embodies the brutal physical reality. And in this world, the physical usually wins.
That brings us right back to that Holbein painting, the dead body, the rotting flesh, the machine of nature that crushes everything, even God. The prince is trying to bring resurrection, trying to bring hope into a world that looks exactly like that painting.
It raises a really provocative question for us listening today. I mean, we live in a deeply transactional world. We sell beauty on Instagram, in advertising, we mechanize death. Maybe not with guillotines, but we sanitize it, we push it away, or we consume it as entertainment.
We count our likes, not our minutes.
Precisely. In a world like that, is the only truly sane person the one everyone calls an idiot?
Is extreme empathy a form of madness? Is it just not functional?
Or is it the only way to actually see the world? Remember the calligraphy. The prince felt the tight collar of the scribe who wrote the letters. He felt the fear of the man on the scaffold. He felt the shame of the fallen woman. That level of empathy is agonizing. It's almost a sickness, but without it, are we just Ganya? Are we just transacting with each other until we die?
That is a thought that's definitely going to keep me up tonight.
As it should.
We're going to wrap up this deep dive here. We've only scratched the surface of the idiot, really just the first few hours of the prince's arrival in Petersburg.
Yeah.
But what an arrival.
It sets the stage for one of the greatest and most devastating tragedies in all of literature. And I hope, even if you don't go on to read the whole book, you sit with that image of the prince on the train, the hooded traveler shivering, bringing a little bit of strange light into the fog.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a challenge. Next time you look at a face, maybe a stranger on the subway, maybe a family member you're annoyed with, try to look at them the way the prince looked at that portrait. Don't just see the surface. Try to see the history, the suffering, the riddle. You might just see something beautiful.
And if you do, don't be afraid to be a little bit of an idiot about it.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next deep dive.